Welcome to Lumina, the House of Education. This podcast exists to make a difference. Here, real stories from classrooms, schools, and education systems are brought together to reshape what education is meant to be in modern times. We talk about leadership, responsibility, values, and the human side of learning. This is a space for education leaders who are done reacting and ready to lead. Let's begin.
411,000. I can't get that number out of my head.
It's hard to even picture. It's the population of a pretty big city.
A city that just vanished from the workforce. Welcome to episode 10, everyone. We are digging into a stack of reports today that, well, frankly, they're pretty sobering. We're looking at the Learning Policy Institute's 2025 report, data from the UK, Canada, all pointing to the same crisis, the global teacher shortage.
And that number you started with, 411,000, that's just the U.S.
Just the U.S. And it's the number of teaching jobs that are either totally empty or, and this is the scary part, filled by someone who isn't actually certified.
It's a shocking figure. It works out to about 1 in every 8 teaching positions. I mean, can you imagine if 1 in 8 surgeons in a hospital just wasn't a surgeon?
Right. It's not just an empty desk. It's a filled but not really desk. But here's my question. Because we hear about labor shortages everywhere. Is this just, nobody wants to teach anymore? Is the pipeline just broken?
See, and that's the common assumption, right? Let's just recruit more people. But when you really dig into the LPI data, you see it's not a recruitment crisis.
It's not.
Not primarily. It's an attrition crisis. 90% of the yearly demand for new teachers comes from people leaving the job.
90%.
90. So we're not failing to pour water into the bucket. The bucket has a giant hole in the bottom.
Wow. So we were just hemorrhaging talent.
Yeah.
But I saw something in the Youth and Policy brief that said this bleeding isn't happening everywhere equally.
No. And that's where the inequality really kicks in. It's super concentrated. If you're in say, a wealthy suburban school, you might feel a little pinch.
But not a crisis.
But in rural areas or low-income urban schools, that's where you see what some people are calling education deserts. Teachers, for totally understandable reasons, they move to metropolitan areas for lean pay for more stability.
So the very students who need the most consistency and the best teachers
are the least likely to get them. It's a vicious cycle. And, this isn't just a U.S. thing. I want to bring in the U.K. for a second. That NFER report from 2023, it adds a whole other dimension. The cost of living crisis.
This was the part about the support staff, wasn't it? The teaching assistants.
Exactly. We tend to focus only on the teacher, but a school is an ecosystem. The report found that 88% of secondary schools said their teaching assistants, or TAs, are quitting in droves.
And they're not going to other schools.
They're going to work in supermarkets, in retail.
That's the detail that just floored me. You have someone trained to help kids with special needs, and they're figuring out that stacking shelves is a better financial move.
It's a perfectly rational choice for them, maybe slightly better pay, but way more flexibility, and the financial pressure is immense. There was this one stat in the report.
Let me guess, the one about the unexpected expense.
That's the one. Less than half of teachers felt they could afford an unexpected expense.
So if your car breaks down, you're done. That is profound fragility.
And you can't be a calm, stable presence for a room full of kids when you're terrified about next month's rent. It creates this constant low-level anxiety that leads right to, the B word.
Burnout.
Burnout.
But I feel like that word gets thrown around so much, like it's almost lost its meaning. The Canadian study you sent over, though, it paints a much more clinical and, frankly, darker picture.
It does. It gives it a real structure. It's not just, I'm tired. It's a 3-stage collapse.
Okay, so what's stage 1?
Stage 1 is emotional exhaustion. You're just depleted. All your energy is gone.
Which, let's be honest, could describe a lot of us.
Of course. But in teaching, you can't just hide in a cubicle. So that exhaustion forces you into stage 2. Depersonalization.
That's the scary one.
It really is. It's a defense mechanism. To survive the constant stress, you start to detach emotionally. You stop seeing your students as these wonderful, complicated little people and start seeing them as tasks, as problems to be managed.
You put up a wall.
A huge wall. But the reason you got into teaching was for that connection.
So once you build the wall to survive the job, you've already lost the reason you're doing the job.
And that takes you right to stage 3. A feeling of low personal accomplishment. You feel like you're failing, like you're not effective. And once you're exhausted, cynical, and feel like a fraud, you quit.
There was that anecdote in the study.
Yeah.
a teacher named Lawrence.
Oh, yeah. That was just heartbreaking.
His daughter was thinking about becoming a teacher.
And he told her, flat out, don't do it. He said something like, they'll just run you into the ground and then replace you.
Run you into the ground and replace you. I mean, when the elders are telling the young to stay away from the fire, you know the village is in trouble.
He doesn't just feel tired, he feels disposable.
And the craziest part is that the way schools react to all this financial pressure just makes that feeling worse. The Ofsted report, Making the Cut, it shows how the so-called solution to the money problem is actually the cause of the burnout problem.
It's a snake eating its own tail. A school's budget gets cut, so to protect the core teaching jobs, they cut everything else.
The support staff, the admin help.
The lab techs, the counselors, all gone. But that work doesn't go away.
It just lands on the teacher's desk.
Exactly. So now you're not just a history teacher, you're also the data clerk, the guidance counselor, the IT support. The report gave an example of a higher-level teaching assistant, an HLTA.
Who's, just to be clear, not a fully certified teacher for every subject.
Right, and she was teaching art, PE, and music every afternoon because the school couldn't afford anyone else. Imagine the stress on her. And on the other teachers who have to pick up the slack.
It just accelerates the whole burnout cycle.
Pushes the pedal to the floor.
Okay, so we've established the system is breaking the adults. But what about the kids? What does this actually feel like for a student sitting in that classroom?
That's the most important question, isn't it? The Ofsted report was really visceral on this. It's not just bigger classes. It's that the enrichment, the joy, just vanishes.
The hands-on stuff.
All of it. They talked about schools cutting the practical parts of science class because they couldn't afford the equipment.
Ah, this was that quote about the GCSE experiment.
Yes. A teacher said for these critical exams, their students couldn't actually do the required experiments. They had to watch a video of it instead.
A video.
And the teacher said it makes them feel second-rate. Her words were, look at the rich kids playing with the kit.
Wow. Look at the rich kids playing with the kid. You're basically teaching a 15-year-old that a real education isn't for them.
You're teaching them their place. And you're widening that opportunity gap in real time. Then you add the mental health data from the Platform for Life brief on top of that.
It gets even worse.
It's staggering. 1 in 6 kids between 5 and 16 has a probable mental health disorder, and the schools, which should be the first line of defense,
They fired the counselors.
they fired the life rafts just as the tide is coming in.
This is all incredibly bleak. We have a massive shortage, a system that's designed to burn out its best people, and kids who are paying the price. Is there any good news here? Is there a way out?
You know, it's easy to despair.
Right.
But the School Leadership Network report, the SLN report, it does offer a different way of looking at the problem.
Okay, I'm listening.
It basically says, look, a school principal can't fix the national pay scale. They can't print money. Those are systemic causes.
Right, they're out of their control.
But what they can control are the local levers. And their big argument is that while salary might get someone in the door, it's the culture that makes them stay.
I have to push back on that a little bit. Culture can feel like such a corporate buzzword. You know, we can't pay you more, but we have a ping pong table.
It's a totally fair challenge. You can't pay your mortgage with good vibes.
Right.
But the SLN research, which they tested in places like Peru and Ghana, so these aren't wealthy, privileged schools, they found that money is more of a threshold. Once you meet a basic survivable level, people leave because of how they're treated, how they feel.
So what did they find actually works?
They identified 3 pillars. The first is culture and belonging.
Not the ping pong table kind of culture.
No, not the pizza party kind. The professional refuge kind. The idea that in a really chaotic world, the school building has to be a place where teachers feel safe, respected, and part of something meaningful.
Okay, that makes sense. A refuge. What's pillar 2?
Distributed leadership. This one directly fights that low personal accomplishment stage of burnout.
So it's about giving teachers more control.
Real control, not just delegating paperwork. It's saying, you're our best literacy specialist. I want you to lead the team that's going to fix our reading scores. Here's the budget. Go. It turns them from employees into owners.
It gives them agency back. I like that. But the third pillar was one that really stood out to me. Trust and forgiveness. You don't see forgiveness in a policy paper very often.
It sounds soft, doesn't it? But it might be the most important one.
Yeah.
In these high-pressure, high-stakes systems, teachers are terrified of failing, so they just stick to the script. They don't innovate.
Because it's safer.
Much safer. Forgiveness means the school leader actively models that it's okay to try something and have it not work. that a failed lesson is a learning opportunity, not a black mark on your record.
It creates psychological safety.
It creates a place where professionals can actually be professionals.
Yeah.
And what they found is that when you have those three things, safety, ownership, and forgiveness, retention goes way up, even without huge salary increases.
It plugs the hole in the bucket.
It starts to plug the hole, it stops the bleeding, so you can finally start to refill it.
It's such a powerful shift. We tend to think of this as a huge systemic government problem, which it is.
It absolutely is, but it's also a leadership problem, a management problem. That's the real takeaway for me. We're all asking the wrong question.
What do you mean?
We spend all this time and money asking, how do we recruit more teachers? But after reading all this, looking at Lawrence's story, I think the real question is, how do we stop breaking the ones we already have?
That's it, isn't it? If we could fix that, the recruitment crisis might just solve itself.
I think it's the only way it can.
We'll have to leave it there. Thank you for listening to episode 10. And if you're a teacher out there listening to this, we see you. We'll catch you on that one.
Education doesn't change through slogans. It changes when leaders are willing to look again at what really matters. If this episode raised a question worth sitting with, then it did its job. This is Lumina, the House of Education. We'll continue the conversation tomorrow.